All right, massive 49ers update show for you here on this Monday afternoon before the Falcons play. We get to watch the 49ers' next opponent. They're going to be coming in for Sunday night football at Levi Stadium. And guess what? Jake Moody is going to be kicking tonight for the Chicago Bears against the Commanders in the second Monday night football game. They're going to be happening simultaneously. Anyway, Fred Warner is going to be undergoing surgery tomorrow. Kyle Shanahan just got off the call with him. He confirmed that Warner is expected to miss the rest of this season, but the good news is that the 49ers do expect Warner to be back for the 2026 offseason program. And George Kittle is going to be back out on the practice field this week. So Kittle in line to return from injured reserve, and the 49ers are going to reevaluate Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall on Wednesday. It sounds to me like there's a shot that either Purdy or Pearsall or both also return for this game against the Atlanta Falcons, although that shot is obviously not as good as George Kittle, whom the 49ers expect to be back from the hamstring injury. I also have an update on Brandon Aiyuk. I'm going to get to that in a second before we delve further into that whole timetable and that situation. But I do think that we've got to look at the George Kittle impact and really highlight that when he's been on the field for the 49ers over the past couple seasons, they have averaged over 1 yard per rush more than when he's been off the field. Like, it is one of the most staggering split differentials that you'll ever see. And I think that the reason why George Kittle is such an effective proponent of the 49ers run game is simple. He's a leverage piece. You don't know if he's going to go out for a pass pattern or block as well as an offensive lineman. And when he goes out for those pass patterns, he's one of the best receivers in football. So he's an absolute weapon that leverages defenses. I do think that he helps the offensive line look better just because you've got the defense on its heels, not knowing what George Kittle is going to do. So this is going to be a massive return for the 49ers as they strive to play with an elite offense, which they obviously will need given the fact that the defense has taken so many blows. The article is up on the screen. This is on the San Francisco Standard. 49ers grades after losing Fred Warner. When can George Kittle and others provide help? Well, I've got updates on more guys than just those two. Unfortunately for the 49ers, doesn't sound like Ben Barch is in line to return this week. And it was the interior line that really, really struggled for San Francisco. If you go up to the San Francisco Standard and look at my grades piece, when you go to the offensive line, they get a D+. The tackle play actually wasn't bad for San Francisco in this game. Trent Williams and Colton McKivitz are playing solid football. It's the interior line that is giving up a lot. Dominic Puni allowed 6 pressures. I don't know if this was one of them. This looks like, oh, no, that looks like the strip sack from Jamel Dean. This was actually allowed by Luke Farrell, the tight end, against one of the blitzes on that picture. But Puni allowed 6 pressures. 4 pressures came from Vita Vea, the big 350-pound beer truck in the middle of that Tampa Bay line. He's actually from Milpitas, not too far from Levi Stadium. The 49ers couldn't handle Vea up the middle. Dominic Puni has really, really struggled this year. He has dropped from an 89th percentile guard in terms of the PFF offensive grade to 24th percentile. So last year he was better than 89% of guards as a rookie around the league, and that included veterans. This year he's better than only 24% of guards in terms of that grade. Kyle Shanahan today on his conference call agreed that Dominic Puni is not playing his best football, and he did say that the knee injury that Puni suffered against the Raiders on that extra point protection really put him behind the 8 ball to start this season. They believe that Dominic Puni will return to better form, and to be honest, he's going to have to, because they're playing well at the tackle positions. Williams is number 7 out of 62 tackles in terms of grade, and Colton McKivitz is number 15. They both passed the eye test. Trent may not be playing absolute top-level football like he had been in prior years, but he's also dealing with Connor Colby, the rookie who's gaining experience. on his side at left guard. So I think Williams is having to conceal a lot of mistakes. Bottom line, if you watch the tape, if you know what you're looking for, tackle has actually been above average for the 49ers. But what they're giving up on the inside, whether it be Colby at left guard, Pooney at right guard, or Jake Brendel at center, sometimes a combination of two of those three, is just not sustainable. I mean, this is something I was saying during the game yesterday. This is actually a theme that goes back some time. The interior line has been a bane of the 49ers' existence at different spots over the years. Right guard used to be the particularly weak spot, and this year they did. I don't think anybody counted on a Dominic Pooney regression for the 49ers. He was an 89th percentile guy, again, as a rookie. The fact that he's down at the 24th percentile, he gave up 6 pressures yesterday. I mean, it is a big, big issue for the 49ers. I think you can get away with one leaky guard spot if both of your tackles are playing well. I don't think you can get away with both guard spots being leaky. You could scheme your way around some deficiencies. I mean, in 2023, Spencer Burford had a really rough year, gave up a lot of pressure at right guard, but the 49ers were fine across the rest of the line. I mean, Colton McKivitz, I mean, the whole right side, actually, I should say, in 2023, they're able to scheme around that. With Colton McKivitz was not what he is today. He was down bottom barrel pass blocker. But, I mean, they had the weapons on the outside to generate separation, and Purdy had such a good year. He could also see the pressure coming in from his right, so he was able to use his legs to escape some of it. They made it work even with an offensive line that wasn't great in 2023. They started getting better in 2024, ironically, because that was a worse season for the 49ers. Obviously, other variables started to tumble. But now they come here into 2025, and even though the tackle play has been okay, they're just not seeing the results they need to see for whatever reason, and the reasons are different at each position along the interior line. Yes, Richard Sherman, diehard 49ers fan Richard Sherman just lit up Jake Brendel today on his podcast. And he was talking about the play that we were discussing yesterday. There was a screen pass to Christian McCaffrey late in the game, or late in the first half, where if Brendel can just hold a little bit of a block on Levante David, if he can just obstruct Levante David for a second, Christian McCaffrey has a lot of running room. But he can't obstruct Levante David, and David gets around him and tackles Christian McCaffrey. Then there was the holding penalty from Jake Brendel. Then there was a play where Vita Vea split Brendel and Dominic Pooney. And, you've got two guys. I get it that Vita Vea weighs 347 pounds and, is one of the largest human beings in the entire National Football League, and it is a complete force of nature. I understand that, but you also have two NFL offensive linemen between Jake Brendel and Dominic Pooney that need to combine forces effectively enough to stop him in his tracks. Like, it's a double team, right? I mean, Brendel and Pooney, that's over 600 pounds between them. 600 is a larger number than 347, yet Vita Vea was still able to split them on the play that I'm talking about. So that just goes back to where the 49ers need to be better. Kyle Shanahan affirmed that when he was talking to us today on the conference call. The article, the grades are up on the San Francisco Standard. We're going to revisit those in a second. Why don't we go through the rest of this news? For the first time, we heard Kyle Shanahan casually toss out a date regarding Brandon Aiyuk's return. So the date is week 10. That Kyle Shanahan said, but he didn't say that was a formal date. So right now, I'm just doing the math in my head. This was week 6. Week 7 is going to be the game against the Falcons coming up on Sunday night. Week 8 is going to be a game against the Texans. Week 9 is a game at the New York Giants. Week 10 is Rams at 49ers. So apparently the 49ers are expecting that Brandon Aiyuk might be back before the bye week, which isn't until week 14. So that we may only be a month away from the Brandon Aiyuk return. Now, again, Kyle Shanahan said that they don't have a firm date yet because he's got to hit certain markers. He tore up a lot in his knee. This was a very, very severe knee injury, and he's been rehabbing back at the facility, and the rehab has been going well for Brandon Aiyuk. Once he hits certain markers, they will have an exact date earmarked for Brandon Aiyuk's return. And I think that the markers are getting close to where they'll be a couple weeks out and they'll say, okay, this is the date that we want him to try to get back on the practice field. It very casually sounds like they're pointing at week 10 as the approximate, right? It's like they're estimating based on the markers that they're seeing Brandon Aiyuk clear right now. I do know that last Thursday, John Lynch was doing his KMBR interview, and it was in the morning, and somebody asked him about Brandon Aiyuk, and he said, well, I'm actually looking at him right now. And he looked out the window, and he saw Brandon Aiyuk running. And the last time I saw Brandon Aiyuk running was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was moving very, very well. Like, he was fast out on the practice field. So I know that there's some drama right now regarding Brandon Aiyuk and social media on the internet. I don't participate in this Instagram waste of time. You know, I have an Instagram, of course, but I'm not going to sit around and engage in the gossip of who's following and unfollowing people. I see that Brad Graham has noted that Brandon Aiyuk and his Instagram has looked the same for months. So, and there's a link in his profile page directly pointing back to the 49ers. So, I mean, all this is bluster. What I can tell you is that I know that Brandon Aiyuk has been in the facility. I know that he's rehabbing well. I know that he had a severe knee injury. And I know that Kyle Shanahan literally just said that they're expecting him back around week 10, which might actually be earlier than some people thought, because I heard a lot of rumblings that this might not happen until after the bye week. So I think week 10 actually sounds pretty damn good for the 49ers. You know, I wrote about this up on the San Francisco Standard. Let's go back down to the receiving section here, because we could talk about Jawan Jennings too and some of the discontent there. But here's the line, and I'm going to share it. Jennings, playing with 5 broken ribs and an ankle injury, is battling just to be out on the field. The 49ers can really use perimeter blocking help from Kittle, a Ricky Pearsall return, and gasp, maybe even a cameo from Brandon Aiyuk, who is a fantastic run blocker down the stretch. One of the 49ers' biggest problems right now is that they're not getting good run blocking from their receivers. In fact, Kendrick Bourne, who had a fantastic game catching the ball yesterday, 5 for 142 yards again, second straight week with 142 for Kendrick Bourne. So 2 career highs in 2 weeks. But both Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson scored under 60 in run blocking grade. And I watched the tape, and it checks out. They're not getting good perimeter blocking. They're already missing George Kittle, who's huge for the leverage and the perimeter blocking. The receivers, who are essentially replacement receivers because they don't have Brandon Aiyuk and Ricky Pearsall, are also not picking up that blocking slack. Jawan Jennings actually scored better. He scored in the 70s yesterday, but even he was off yesterday, and he's playing with 5 broken ribs. Jawan, I mean, it wasn't a running play, but it was, I consider it like run blocking. They threw a swing pass out to Christian McCaffrey, and he leveled the defensive back like it was NFL blitz while the ball was in the air. And it was like, okay, that was mistimed by about 2 seconds. That wasn't good. It killed the 49ers drive. It set them back 10 yards, and that drive turned into an Eddie Pinheiro field goal. But they were moving, and you could make the argument that might have cost the 49ers a chance to win this game. So they've got to be better blocking on the perimeter. They should be better blocking on the perimeter when George Kittle returns. But 2 more ways to get even better would be to get Ricky Pearsall back, and in an even more effective way to get Brandon Aiyuk back. I mean, I think Aiyuk might be gravy as far as the 49ers' ultimate plans are concerned, just because he tore up his knee that badly. Like, whatever you get from him this year is a plus. But let's not pretend that Brandon Aiyuk is a bad run blocker. Brandon Aiyuk is one of the most badass run blockers in all of football. I mean, I still remember him against the Steelers on the 19 structure fool. That's the name of the play. 19 structure fool was the outside zone run to Christian McCaffrey that he turned for a 65-yard touchdown week 1 of the 2023 season. I vividly remember Brandon Aiyuk blocking 2 people on one play about 15 yards apart. First, he took out Highsmith, the defensive end, with a little chip, and then he sprinted downfield, got there in 3 or 4 seconds, and took out Casey, who was the safety at the time for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Christian McCaffrey was able to sprint down the sideline. Then Ray McLeod did the rest, running on the hypotenuse from the far side. He must have run about 70 yards, maybe even more on the play. I mean, the receivers were blocking their asses off. And I know that they were more capable because Brandon Aiyuk is really, really good at this. I know that they were much more capable than the guys now who are more replacement guys for the 49ers. But San Francisco's got to start reapproximating what they had in the past as far as receiver blocking went. So in summary, when it comes to these injuries, the 49ers hoping that both Purdy and Ricky Pearsall can really ramp up this week. They're going to test those guys on Wednesday. Kittle back. Yes, that's huge for San Francisco. Fred Warner undergoing surgery tomorrow, back for the next offseason program. No Ben Barch this week, and Brandon Aiyuk, it sounds like a very soft target date of week 10 for the 49ers, although I'm going to reemphasize that is not a firm target date for Brandon Aiyuk's return. Article is up on the San Francisco Standard. It's right here. Mike is going to toss this one into the description, and I'm going to toss it into the chat section right now. And we're going to take a look at the roster ahead of Monday Night Football. I think it's a really good time to look at the roster. I guess the Brandon Aiyuk social media story has been deleted. So that was much ado about nothing. I get so many questions. This is why I don't partake in social media drama. If you appreciate a channel that is about facts and isn't about gossip surrounding the 49ers, give me a follow right now. We're not into Instagram social media gossip in these corners. We are about actual football talk and and actual depth charts and all of the above. So hopefully those of you who are new viewers here who are sick of all that other stuff can stay for a while, because we're about to get deep into the weeds here. Let's take a look at the 49ers roster. I think we could remove, well, we can't remove George Kittle from injured reserve just yet, because first his practice window is going to be open. Once, the 49ers are going to activate Kevin Givens at some point. They haven't done that yet. George Kittle and Kevin Givens will be probably their first 2 activations from injured reserve. Then they've got some spots still left to fill for Ben Barch. Spencer Burford can come back potentially this season. Maybe Jacob Cowing, who's been working on the side field. What I wonder about most when Kittle does return is going to be in this spot. Jake Tonjes seems to have carved out a role for himself, or at least presented an argument that he should be in the mix for the 49ers, even after Kittle is back. Luke Farrell had a low light yesterday. Luke Farrell allowed Jamel Dean to blow by him on the blitz, and that turned into the strip sack, which is photographed right here. This was Luke Farrell's fault. But Luke Farrell also had his best game run blocking for the 49ers. He had scored as a below average run blocker in each of the first 5 games, but Farrell was much better for San Francisco yesterday. So perhaps he's acclimating, and that's good news for the 49ers, because now they're going to get George Kittle, who's an all-world blocker and a receiver, back. And you're going to have growing confidence, I would hope, in Luke Farrell. You're going to have Jake Tonjes, who's proven himself over the first 6 games. And you're going to have Mr. Future Hall of Famer George Kittle. How do you balance things now at the tight end position? It's great to have depth, but did the 49ers find a way to get all 3 of these guys on the field at the same time? Especially if the receiver blocking has not been good and the 49ers run game is struggling the way that it is, do we see George deployed a little bit more as a wideout? I mean, they do it every game to some extent, right? George Kittle lined up out wide. Does that happen a little bit more when he returns, so he could truly punish as a run blocker on the perimeter? Because I think that it's extremely important that the 49ers get the run game going, because if you don't get the run game going, then you create opportunities for stuff like this to happen. You create opportunities for the defense to pin its ears back, send blitzes after your quarterback, and especially if your quarterback is not Brock Purdy, or if it is an injury-compromised Brock Purdy, well, you set your quarterback up to be a sitting duck. So getting that run game going with the return of Kittle, with the return of some auxiliary blockers, I think is going to be something that is a priority for the 49ers moving forward, because Mac had to drop back over 40 times yesterday. He threw the ball 39 times. This was coming off a game where he threw the ball 49 times. He's getting the absolute crap beaten out of him. And the 49ers, just to make this sustainable for either quarterback under center, whether it's Mac Jones, whether it's Brock Purdy, or even if it's Adrian Martinez or some random guy like Nathan Peterman that they might sign off the street, they need a more balanced attack so defenses are on their heels instead of being on their toes. Mike says that I've got to add Malik Mustafa to, oh, I could show Malik Mustafa. I've added him, Mike. Down here, Malik Mustafa is back off of the 49ers pup list. Oh, I have to show Malik Mustafa as a pup activation, you're saying. Yep, you're right. Here, we'll put Malik down here. Pup activation number 1. That's correct. So I do retract what I said earlier. Malik is the first pup activation. Pup activation number 2 will probably be George Kittle or Kevin Givens if Givens happens this week. So the 49ers will have 5 left at that point. You have a total of 8. They can also activate Curtis Rourke, the rookie quarterback, off of the non-football injury list. Call that NFI. That will not count against the 8 activations that the 49ers have. In fact, I could erase NFI from here. NFI goes under a different set of rules as pup, physically unable to perform. NFI pertains to players who did not get injured at a NFL facility. So Curtis Rourke got hurt during college football, so he goes on the non-football injury list. Rourke will probably be a red shirt this year, meaning that they're going to activate him when they think that he's ready and when they think the time is right, and he'll be able to use his 3-week window to practice, but it's highly, highly doubtful that they then activate him to the actual 53-man roster. So they could just shut him down after that 3-week window, consider whatever he picked up over that time to be a profit, and then turn around and have him rejoin the 49ers for the offseason program. We're going to get to see Jake Moody kick tonight, by the way. Mike sent me a video of Jake Moody warming up for the Chicago Bears. And this comes the day after Eddie Pinheiro passed Justin Tucker for number 2 on the all-time field goal accuracy list. So back to the grades. We can go through all of them right now. Gave Mac Jones a C+ at quarterback. Here you could see some of Mac Jones' throwing efficiency. He was actually perfect on throws over the middle, as you might be able to see here. Mac Jones struggled a little bit more throwing to his left, like everything to his left except for a couple passes behind the line of scrimmage weren't good. He threw his 1 interception to the deep left part of the field, but he did wear out the middle, whether it be Kendrick Bourne or DeMarcus Robinson or Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I know that DeMarcus couldn't hold on to a ball, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling couldn't hold on to a ball thrown to the left side, but the middle of the field was the bread and butter for Mac Jones. I thought that, he's turned into a folk hero of sort for how he's played hurt and how he's shown such toughness for the 49ers. I don't think anything that happened yesterday should have diminished that impression of Mac Jones. I mean, he still played his ass off, did the most he could with a bad situation for San Francisco. The first interception wasn't his fault. The last one was, but I mean, when a quarterback does have to drop back as many times as Mac did, over 40 times, when he is sacked 6 times, there's going to be a miss or 2 in there. That's why you got to limit the throwing opportunities. That's why you have to run better than the 49ers have been running, so you can really set yourself up for a better situation in that regard. As we continue to scroll through the grades, I just want to give you my appraisal of each position group. Hey, I'm giving Christian McCaffrey an A until proven otherwise. It is not his fault that there is such a lack of running room and that offensive linemen are not finishing their blocks. He's still producing over 100 all-purpose yards a game, despite the fact that defenses are essentially putting all resources on him. And to me, that's staggering. And he's staying healthy so far. He had 54 on 17 carries through the run game, and the pass game yielded 7 catches for 57 yards. The 49ers just need that better perimeter blocking. This was their best game running the football in terms of success rate. Success rate is the percentage of plays that yield a positive EPA, expected points added. So they weren't explosive again. That's been the big issue in the run game, but they at least were staying ahead of the sticks yesterday. And that helps some of these drives churn out production on the scoreboard, although they only finished one of them in that end zone for the touchdown. And then that's something, you get 4 Eddie Pinheiro field goals, but only 1 touchdown is not going to do it against a good team like Tampa Bay. I just don't blame Christian McCaffrey for the fact that the 49ers blocking apparatus has not been what it had been in previous years. So A for McCaffrey, C+ for the receivers. They're making plays in the pass game. Credit to Bourne. Credit to Demarcus Robinson and Marquez Valdes-Scantling for some big catches in this one, especially to Bourne. But the blocking has just not been there, and that's, I think, a big reason why they need George Kittle back, and that's why we're really intrigued by the potential return of Brandon Aiyuk, maybe around that Week 10 date when the Rams are coming to town. C for the tight ends. Luke Farrell blowing the blitz pickup against Jamel Dean definitely sticks out in my head. And, as well as Tonjes has played and as good as the game was for Luke Farrell and run blocking, this was much better than the previous games. That big of a mistake on the pass protection docks the grade to a C. Kittle expected back this week. As I said, D+ for the offensive line. Most of the problems are coming on the interior for San Francisco. D- for the defensive line. Only 7 combined pressures for the 49ers. That wasn't good for San Francisco. D- for the safeties, C+ for the corners, and A- for special teams. There you go. There's Eddie Pinheiro behind only Cameron Dicker. He has now passed Justin Tucker in all-time field goal percentage. It's crazy to me because the 49ers, you could now realistically say that the leaders of this defense performance-wise are the 2 outside cornerbacks, Diamante Lenoir and Ronaldo Green, because Fred Warner's gone. D. Winters is not playing great football right now. He did for the first 2 weeks, and it's been a drop-off. He's given up a lot in coverage since then. I think he was the one that didn't pick up Cameron Johnson on the first touchdown, the motion touchdown, which might have been a product of Fred Warner not being there to communicate for the 49ers. But Winters has struggled. He missed the tackle yesterday. Now he doesn't have Warner next to him. He's going to be thrust into a whole lot more pressure. There's a reason why this morning I talked about a potential 49ers trade for somebody like Quincy Williams. And every single time that Kyle Shanahan is asked about the trade market, he says that he has got a very interesting line. I mean, this is worth maybe me taking a screenshot and posting it up on the screen, because I think that what Kyle Shanahan is saying about the 49ers potential trades is very, very reflective of an entire video that I made this morning, where I said, remember this morning, and you go watch it if you don't believe me, but this morning I said that the 49ers need to make sure that whatever move that they make is not just helping them in 2025, but is also set up to help them in 2026. They basically, long story short, they don't want to do a rental, that they want to trade for somebody that's making their team better in a longer, sustainable fashion. Well, look at what Kyle Shanahan said about trades today. When asked about trades, Kyle Shanahan keeps on talking about people who can improve our team this year and next year. We're looking for things that make sense for our team now and in the future. So when I talk about Quincy Williams of the New York Jets, when I talk about Jermaine Johnson of the New York Jets, those are both guys who are under contract through 2026. Those are both guys, especially Quincy Williams, who could serve as pillars for the 49ers in 2 rooms where they've lost their foundational pillars, holding those rooms up. Nick Bosa gone for the defensive line. Jermaine Johnson has played under Robert Saleh. I think that could be a good fit for the 49ers. And at linebacker, Quincy Williams, who's played under Robert Saleh. I mean, you talk about Quincy Williams, there's a great picture that I think perfectly illustrates how this guy might be a fit with the 49ers. Look who that is on the left. That's Robert Saleh. Yeah, so I think that Quincy Williams would be somebody who could help shepherd along some of these 49ers young linebackers. I mean, it's Tatum Bethune filling in now for San Francisco. I don't think he was terrible yesterday, but, I mean, they have just thrown these guys to the wolves now outside of their choice. I mean, Fred Warner got hurt, but there's a reason why they double down on Warner's contract this offseason. It's the reason why Nick Bosa was somebody who was so relied upon, because they were counting on both of those players to be the shepherds of their respective position groups, and now both of them are hurt. So even if you are, like, say that the 49ers did want to totally punt this season, they're not, by the way, but say that they did want to punt this season and only focus on 2026 and beyond, you would still need, I think, better leadership on the field in both defensive line and linebacker to maximize the developmental efforts of 2025. That's what foundational pillars are all about. So, the 49ers, I think, are going to remain active on that trade market. But as Kyle Shanahan said, we'll go back to his quote right now, whatever the 49ers might do has to also consider 2026 contractually. No rentals for the 49ers. No rent trades, yes. Rentals, no. There's a difference between a rental and a trade. Deebo Samuel's officially active tonight against the Bears. So it's going to be Deebo Samuel on one side and Jake Moody on the other. The day after the 49ers got home from Tampa Bay, where it was Deebo Samuel telling Jake Moody to lock in. Well, now Jake Moody is going to be on the other team. So we're going to be watching that game with bated breath. And then the first matchup is Falcons against Bills. And the 49ers get to play the Falcons next week. Buffalo is 4-1 and Atlanta is 2-2. I think the one concern for the 49ers is that Michael Penix Jr., I think, is a 7-on-7 type of quarterback. If that guy doesn't face a pass rush with Drake London and Bijan Robinson as a weapon, a multifaceted weapon downfield, I think he's accurate enough to do some damage. Now, Michael Penix Jr. is a statue. He can't move. But does it really matter if the 49ers can't get to him? I know they got to Mayfield a couple times yesterday, but then they let Mayfield get away. And Mayfield's a whole lot more agile than Michael Penix Jr. So the 49ers are going to have their hands full regardless of whom they're playing moving forward, because this defense is very, very shorthanded at this point. San Francisco's at the point where they can go 3-0 over the course of the next 3 games, and I will not be surprised. The 49ers can also go 0-3 over the course of the next 3 games, and I will not be surprised. It's been a long time since I've seen a 3-game stretch as this much of a wild card for the 49ers. They play the Falcons next week. Then they head to Houston. Then they head to New York to play the Giants. Following that, Week 10, as we're talking about Brandon Aiyuk's potential return, is going to be against the Rams at home. That may end up being the biggest game of the season. I mean, if you just look at pivot points and November, that's when stuff starts getting really serious. That could really decide which way this season heads for the stretch run for the 49ers, right? Then there's Week 18 against Seattle. Don't discount that one. But, if you're insistent on looking at the big picture for the 49ers, just get these rookies a playoff game. I mean, it's everything that you do in the regular season should be targeted at getting into the tournament, and the 49ers can still do that. They could still field an elite offense with who they have coming back. The first of those returns should be happening this week with George Kittle. Maybe they'll be surprised by Ricky Pearsall and Brock Purdy. They can still bolster this football team with some Robert Saleh guys on the defensive side. I'll talk about Quincy Williams and Jermaine Johnson and others as long as I need to. But between now and November 4th, stuff can happen on that front. They can still develop as a football team on the defensive side of the ball because they've got one of the best defensive coaching staffs in all of football. And you know what? They also still have Eddie Pinheiro on the team, and that's no small thing because they picked up 7 expected points on special teams yesterday. Like, they were a full touchdown better on special teams. If you look at what they did special teams-wise yesterday versus Week 1 when Jake Moody, who's obviously in the news since he's going to be kicking tonight for the Bears, they were -10 in Week 1, right? Almost -11 in Week 1. They were +7 yesterday. So the difference between -10 and +7 is 17 points. They were 17 points better on special teams yesterday in Tampa Bay than week 1 in Seattle. Now, you're not often going to have that big of a discrepancy between your worst special teams performance and your best one. I get it. Like I'm just picking total opposite ends of the extreme, but a few points difference is common. Like special teams can ebb and flow in one way or the other. You can see just by virtue of the numbers that I'm giving you right now, how the math has changed for the 49ers because special teams is so much better. And that's thanks to Eddie Pinheiro, almost solely thanks to Eddie Pinheiro, who's kicking. I mean, it's insane how automatic he looks. I mean, he looks like a damn machine out there for the 49ers. So when we talked about the calculus at the start of this season, we said the 49ers need to have a very good offense. They need to have an average defense, and they need to have a special teams that doesn't screw it up. It is going to be an uphill battle just to have an average defense without Fred Warner out there and without Nick Bosa out there. So now they just need to have an acceptable defense. It could be a little bit below average, but it needs to be acceptable. To make up for that, they need to still have a very good offense, preferably elite, but very good might be good enough if they have an excellent special teams. If Eddie Pinheiro keeps on just kicking the crap out of the ball and giving the 49ers +6, +7 special teams EPA margins per game. So there's like 3 bars, right? Offense, defense, special teams. And as one lowers, the other has to rise. If it doesn't rise, then you're losing efficiency. So obviously offense is lowered with injuries, but almost all the injuries on offense are temporary. We'll see guys return this year. Defense is lowered significantly with permanent injuries. Both Nick Bosa and Fred Warner are done for the season. But special teams, which was dragging the 49ers down over previous seasons and in week 1 this year, is now propping the 49ers up. So you've gotten a bigger boost from special teams. How are you going to use the slack that gives you? Well, they're probably going to have to take a little bit of a deposit out to make up for the defense, which is going to be hard to replicate what they would have been able to do without Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. But I think that the offense still has capabilities of naturally giving the 49ers really high-level play. A lot of it's going to be a return for Brock Purdy, but a huge part of it, too, is going to be George Kittle coming back for the 49ers this week. So go ahead and check out that grades article. It is up on the San Francisco Standard. We lead with the injury news for San Francisco today. I'm going to answer a couple of questions here before Monday Night Football gets started. Purdy can scramble and extend plays. Mac can't. Yes, there's a reason why Purdy is a superior quarterback to Mac Jones, and it is because of mobility. So what a lot of people don't seem to process. It seemed that they processed it just fine when Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback, and they wanted the 49ers to get a mobile replacement for him. But now all of a sudden, Mac Jones doing a lot of the same stuff that Jimmy Garoppolo did before. I think Mac is a really good QB. Jimmy Garoppolo was a really good QB. But Purdy has been elite in this league because of his ability to extend plays. Like, period. That's what the 49ers are missing right now. Mac does have a solid arm. I would say he doesn't have a massive arm. Like Matthew Stafford obviously has a huge arm. Josh Allen obviously has a huge arm. But once you get beyond that level, the guys that just have absurd cannons, once you get beyond the 99th percentile of arms, the vast majority of NFL quarterbacks fall into a very acceptable range. They can make all the throws needed to operate an offense. So everything else just ends up being some kind of ego argument for people to try to pound their chests on the internet. I really don't get it. Mac's arm is plenty strong to make the throws needed. So is Brock Purdy's. Thank you to Tina. She has become a new member on the channel. Welcome to Tina. Everybody else can sign up for a membership via the YouTube desktop app. Have I watched film on the Falcons? No, I haven't watched a lot of tape. I usually watch tape on Tuesday. I'm going to be flying cross country tomorrow, so that's where I'm going to be watching a lot of the Falcons tape. I wanted to watch them actually play the Bills tonight on the TV copy before I delve into actual tape, just so I'm a little bit more easily introduced. I mean, I have watched the Falcons play. I've seen Michael Penix Jr. play. He doesn't move well. speaking of a quarterback without mobility, Michael Penix Jr. is one of them. But I don't know if the 49ers can rush effectively enough to actually make that an issue for the Atlanta Falcons. Purdy did not look terrible versus Jacksonville. He didn't have a great game, but he didn't look terrible. He had 2 deflected interceptions. He actually made quite a few good explosive plays in that game, despite the fact that he was hurt and his receivers dropped a lot of passes. You would not be saying the same thing had Kendrick Bourne or Christian McCaffrey caught the passes that slipped through their hands and the 49ers had won the game. In fact, you wouldn't be saying this had the 49ers not allowed the punt return for a touchdown. Did you know that the 49ers offense and defense actually outscored Jacksonville's offense and defense? So this is what Jeff is bringing, very results-based analysis instead of process-based analysis, and he's ignoring the fact that Brock Purdy doesn't cover punts, and he's using it to color his analysis of Brock Purdy. But if you're going to be fair to Brock Purdy and the truth in this situation, he didn't look terrible. He definitely was hurt, and it wasn't his best game, but he still fought through it and did a lot of good things. Unfortunately, it's a team sport, and the 49ers didn't pull enough weight in other areas to pick him up against Jacksonville. If the receivers caught half of those passes, then Purdy and the Niners would win. Yes, I think that's a much easier way to give it a litmus test. Connor Hughes reports that Jermaine Johnson is a name that has come up for several teams in need of edge help in trade discussions. It would take a lot for the Jets to part with Johnson. A team involved in those conversations said, well, I mean, right, it's October 13th right now. The trade deadline's not till November 4th. So I would not expect the Jets to say, oh, yeah, we're going to sell for a low price. Generally, wait a little bit. Right now, it's the early buy time, so you could set the price a little bit higher. But if you want to get rid of the guy, if your team keeps on sliding, they're already 0-6, then you can get to a point where that price becomes a little bit more manageable. All right. Kittle back this week. Purdy and Pearsall maybe back this week. Aiyuk, soft target date, not an actual target date of week 10. Fred Warner, surgery tomorrow. Probably no Ben Barch this week. The grades article is up. You absolutely have to be signed up for the San Francisco Standard. This is the very best 49ers coverage there is. We have the grades article, and yesterday, Tim Kawakami also had a really good one yesterday. The 49ers can honor Fred Warner by playing like he is still out there. Good article by Tim. You can go check out all of our stuff on the Standard. That's the way that you can best support what we're doing. Everybody enjoy Monday Night Football. Hope you like the update. We will talk to you very soon.